Welcome back to Emblem of Doom Miniatures. My name is Deets and I hope you've all been well. And what about the hype around this Empire release or this re-release that's going on right now? It's absolutely insane and it's got me that excited that today I thought I'd paint up some boys in some Altdorf colors for the channel. We're going to finally get back into the swing of things and jump into some more batch painting, and I'll try not to bitch too much. You know how much I hate batch painting, but I have been very excited to paint up these classic monopose Empire halberdiers. I put up a poll recently on the channel asking for what colors you want me to paint or what state or province of the Empire you want me to paint, and Altdorf just kind of skimmed on through, so we're going to be painting those guys today. As you guys are probably aware of, my allegiance is to the mighty state of Avaland, but I thought I'd kind of mix things up on the channel and try and introduce some different color schemes and make some more tutorials on different states just to keep things a bit more interesting. Anyway, that's enough chit chat, let's get into it. I was lucky enough to actually get 16 of these halberdiers in this box, and this was a bit of a surprise to me because I thought I only bought 8, so what I'll do is save 8 for another tutorial later on down the track, so please let me know down in the comments below what state you'd like to see painted up next. I also got 8 plastic shields, but I'm going to save these for another project I have planned because I always find it hard tracking down these little old world shields and bits and pieces. Like always, I'm putting in some work prepping these men of the Empire. The mold lines on the minis from this era are a bit of a pain in the ass, and I always find that I don't pick up on them until I apply my undercoat, but you win some and you lose some, and it's not the end of the world if there's a mold line here or there. Usually when I'm painting on my miniatures, I am a bit erratic, but when it comes to batch painting, I kind of like to segment things. So today we're just going to dive straight into it and put down my base coat colors all over. And the reason why I'm doing this is because it kind of gives me a sense of accomplishment, and it also makes the decisions on color choices for me right at the very start, so I can relax and just paint the rest. Altdorf is the capital city of the Empire and not a state like the other Empire factions, and the color scheme consists of red and blue. Its military is known to be the best equipped and the fanciest, and it gets a bit of resentment from the other regions of the Empire. It's a massive city of spires and is full of guilds, taverns, magic colleges and universities. It's basically the center of the Empire, so when I put this poll up on what colors you wanted to see slapped on some Empire minis, I really wasn't surprised due to the popularity of Altdorf. I'm going to paint 4 with blue on their left shoulder and right legs with red on the opposite spots, and then paint 4 others in reverse, so I have a little bit of difference in the way they look when they're all stacked up. I can definitely see why, if you're coming into the hobby with fresh eyes and seeing these all stacked up with no variation in poses or armor can look really silly, but I do think there is a bit of charm to these minis. I've batch painted a few 4th and 5th edition boxes now for the channel, and I feel each one kind of gets to the core of what their army's aesthetic is about, and these boxes are starting points for each old world army. It's pretty amazing to see how far they've branched out and grown, but kept similar design philosophies. I think I only have a few more of these old boxes to go, like dwarves, skaven, dark elves, and orcs and goblins, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'll be pretty sad that part of my hobby journey will be over. Next up are the washers, and today I'm not really going to rely on them so much. I'm just going to put them on the areas that really need them, like my yellow halberd tufts, my light skin color, and my true metallics. I've chosen darker colors than I usually would for my base coats to help out, and I'm hoping this will give my minis a better finish because I'm at the point in my painting journey where I want to trim the fat to my processes, if that makes any sense. I've been doing my homework lately and have been watching and studying how some great painters out there work, and it seems that it's time for me to take my training wheels off and start being a bit more confident with my painting skills and take that next step and use washers more as a tool where I need them rather than something I rely on to make my minis readable and my recesses dark. As you can see here, I'm not smothering my weapons in Nuln Oil, I'm carefully guiding it to where I want the shadows and the blade to be. Back in the day, I was the king of slapping it all over and wondering why it looked a mess, and it took me a while, but I learned that this is not the way to do it. A key to doing this is making sure that you're holding the mini horizontally flat so the Nuln Oil doesn't run everywhere. It's time for the fun part. It's time to get these layers on and brighten these guys up. But before we get into that, and if you're enjoying the video, make sure you hit the like button down below. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet and you're enjoying my videos or my content, please do. It really supports the channel and I really appreciate it. Anyway, let's get back into it. Now, as this is a batch paint and I literally go insane when I have to do these, I'm going to try keep my color transitions to around 4 layers to save some time, and I'm hoping this will be enough to give me an above average finished product. I'm going to get the center point or main area of focus on the minis, which is the face, out of the way first, while I have some concentration, because I do find if the face is lacking, the mini won't have as much impact. And I don't know about you, but when I'm batch painting, I start making shortcuts and put in way less effort by the end. You can see here I've started with my darker skin colors covering all the raised areas, and then as I move through to my lighter skin colors, I cover less areas on the face and move these colors closer to areas like the cheekbones, tip of the nose, the lips, the chin, and the knuckles on the hands. The eyes are always tricky, and to be honest, they take a lot of practice, and some days you'll get them in one go and some days you won't. I'm just applying some dried bark in the sockets, and then using the side of my brush, I'm carefully covering just the eye with some white, and then I dot on some more dried bark in the center. And I've said this before, but just make sure you don't drink any coffee before you do this, as you might get the shakes. Let's get some of these bigger chunks of the minis out of the way, and as I said, I want to use 4 layers of highlights, so I won't be here forever. My first 2 layers, which are my Corn Red and Evil Sun Scarlet mix and Pure Evil Sun Scarlet, are going to act as my shading layers. I'll cover most of the areas with my Corn Red and Evil Sun's mix, but I'll leave the recesses their base color of pure Corn Red. I then paint on some Evil Sun Scarlet to the top areas on the legs and the tips of the frilly shirt. Next, I'll start my edge highlighting with some Wild Rider Red, and I'm working as quickly and as carefully as I can here. Each edge of the frills gets a skinny line, and once I'm happy with that, I bust out the orange flare for that last spot highlight to points of interest. In the beginning, I was worried that if I kept my layers to a minimum, I wouldn't get a smooth finish, but I'm actually really happy with what I achieved on this red, so I decided to carry over the same 4-layer approach to my blues. This time I'm starting out with a 50-50 mix of AK Deep Blue and Lothern Blue, and I'm covering a lot bar the recesses, and then I'm going to move on to some pure Lothern Blue, covering anywhere I think light would hit the minis. From here I'll go to my edge highlights and spot highlights, just as I did with the reds. Now I don't know about you, but the last few weeks of the Old World releases and updates have me extremely excited for the future of the setting. There was a point where I was getting fairly nervous about how the IP was being handled and if it was just going to be on the sidelines for the rest of its existence. But I'm starting to feel that the Old World is getting bigger and better and more popular with the common crowd, and GW has noticed. Now I know we didn't get many new minis for the Empire range or even the High Elf range preview last week, but I think the team behind the Old World know how popular and special this setting is to a lot of people, and I feel like they're working on some big things and possibly reworking and hopefully refreshing a lot of minis for the last 2 army releases, the Beastmen and the Wood Elves. Now this is my opinion and I'm probably wrong, but I am expecting by the time we get to the Wood Elf preview, we could possibly have some really great new characters and fun minis to paint. I've been super impressed with some of the new minis that have come out so far, and yes, some have felt a bit flat, but if you said to me 6 months ago, Deets, you're going to be happy with the Old World soon, I would have said bullshit. Now of course there is the cherry on the cake of the Old World, which we found out about last week, and that is the release of the new army, the Grand Cathay, and I'm not going to get into too much of this just yet, I'm going to save that for later on in the year, but I am very excited to see how this army looks on the table, and this is definitely a gateway for new people to come into the Old World setting, and hopefully it boosts its popularity even more. All we need now are the Dark Elves, Skaven, Ogres, Lizardmen, Vampire Counts, and my precious Chorfs back in the fold, and we will be laughing. I will not stop until they are back where they belong. Sorry, I got a little carried away for a second there. Where was I? Oh yeah, painting some Men of Altdorf. Let's get these leathers looking super schmicko, and I start out by covering most of the boots with a mix of Doombull Brown and some dried bark, and then I move on to some pure Doombull Brown, which I place on as lines to make the boots look like they have some natural wear to them. I want a reddish, warmer leather look to these boots because I feel like it'll tie well with the other reds on the mini. For the highlights, I'm working my way through some Scrag Brown, and then eventually finishing off with some Baylor Brown for that spot highlight. Now the feathers are fairly simple, I'm just going to use some lighter greys for this, and the lighter the grey, the more closer to the edge I'm going, until I get to pure white. If you want a more in-depth tutorial on this, I have a quick video on my Patreon with some recipes. I'm also going to make the tip of each feather red, and I'm just using the same red recipe that I use for the clothing. It's time for the last big chunk to get through, which is the true metallics, and I like to approach these as I would any other paint and apply them from darker to lighter. So I'm starting off with some Ironbreaker, and I'm covering most of the panels but leaving the Nuln Oil recesses to give me some contrast. I always water down my true metallics a little as well because they can be a bit chunky, and I also use separate brushes for my metallics as well because I don't want to ruin my good ones. I recommend going out and buying a pack of cheap size 1 to 000 brushes from your local craft shop. You can generally get these for around $10 dues a pack. Next I'm applying some Runefang Steel, which is slightly lighter than Ironbreaker, and I'm slapping this down on the top half of the shoulder pads, the edges of the armor, and parts of the halberd that I want to have some shine. I don't have much paint on my brush, I'm kind of scratching it or polishing it on these areas, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if this technique has a name, I just know if I have less paint on my brush, I can start out with less and then slowly build up the shine. Last but not least, I'm applying a little bit of Vallejo silver, which is very bright, to all of the edges and top areas on the panels to give it a bit of a sparkle. Now of course there's probably a better way to do true metallics, but this method is pretty quick and it gets a nice bright silver result. The golds are very simple as well. I'm just mixing in 1 part Gehenna's gold to 1 part polished gold and applying it to all the raised areas, making sure it doesn't get in any of the recesses. Then I go back over with some more polished gold covering less, and last up I mix up 1 part polished gold to 1 part silver and go back over just to make the gold look a bit more worn. And that's pretty much it. I just painted the bases goblin green, and here they are. Here are 8 Altdorf halberdiers. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end of the video, guys. I really appreciate it. And I'll be painting up some more Men of the Empire very soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I want to say a massive thank you to my Patreons. Like always, you're the backbone of this channel, and I really appreciate all the support. If you want to join the Anvil of Doom Patreon, the link is in the bio, and I've also got a link down there to the Anvil of Doom merch store, and I've got some new merch coming very soon. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. I'll see you all next time. Cheers.